Mr Dilly, and welcome to Mr Dilly's Top of the Poems. I run through 10 of my very favourite children's poets and poems. I'm going to read a couple of poems on the way. The rest I hope you will go and search out, for they are a wonderful wonderment of wonder. So here we go, in no particular order. Let's get ready to rumble! First up, we have Terence Allen Milligan, better known as Spike Milligan, a British-Irish actor, comedian, writer, musician, playwright, and poet. Spike was also a soldier during World War II, achieving international stardom in the 1960s with a radio program called The Goon Show. Spike wrote a lot of his poems for children in the 1959 book Silly Verse for Kids. And one of his poems from that book was once voted the UK's favourite comic poem. And this is the first on my top of the poems list today. The wonderful poem on the Ning, Nang, Nong. As Spike himself says, on no account should the reader try to make sense of the poem, which is just as well, as the poem begins with a few very strange lines about a place called the Ning, Nang, Nong. And along the way, various plants, objects, and animals make various sounds. The cows go boom! The monkeys say boom! The trees go bing! The teapots jibber jabber jibber! And the mice go clang! And the poem ends with a climax. What a noisy place to belong! Is the Ning Nang Nong! That's what I hear. A gong. So it's time for me, Mr Dilly, to move along! Next up is an American poet, writer, and civil rights activist, Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou was well respected as a spokesperson for black people and women, and her works are widely used in schools and universities around the world, centering as they do on themes including racism, identity, family, and travel. But it is her defiant poem, Life Doesn't Frighten Me, which makes my top of the poems list today. In the poem, the narrator is a young girl, and we the reader are taken into her mind as she finds a way, or tries to find a way, to overcome fear in her life by listing all the things that do not frighten her. The poem shows that girls as well as boys can be strong and brave even when life is dangerous and frightening, and is a timeless reminder of the power of courage in all of us. Here's a little poetry joke for you. How do poets say hello? Hey, haven't we metaphor? Oh, come on, that's pretty good, wasn't it? Here's a poet you may all know, Michael Rosen. Michael is a British children's author, presenter, and poet who has written 140 books, including the famous We're Going on a Bear Hunt picture book. So, what poem of Mr. Rosen's makes it to the list? Well, it is simply called Chocolate Cake, because it is about one of the best things in the world, chocolate cake! The poem is about a little boy, a little Michael Rosen really, sneaking downstairs in the middle of the night when everyone is fast asleep to look at a big chocolate cake his mum has made. And then, of course, he's unable to resist having a few crumbs, and then a bit more, until the whole cake is gone! Oh my goodness, you made me a chocolate cake. That's nice. Thank you very much. Well, no, I'm not going to eat it now. Of course not. I'm doing this thing, aren't I? I'm not going to eat it now. I've got some willpower, you know. Next, Hillaire Belloc, one of the busiest writers in England during the earlier 20th century, writing more than 150 books. But he was also a great speaker, a sailor, a soldier, a political activist, and of course a poet. From his book of poems, published in 1907, is where my next top children's poem lies. The book is called Cautionary Tales for Children. And it's a darkly funny children's book of verse, with all the poems offering moral lessons for all types of child mischief makers, with some rather dire dark and dastardly, devious, and lots of other D words consequences. But what's the poem, I hear you ask? The poem I have chosen is called Jim, who ran away from his nurse and was eaten by a lion. In my opinion, it is a roaring success! Thanks. I'll read it to you. Here we go. There was a boy whose name was Jim, and his friends were very good to him. They gave him tea and cakes and jam and slices of delicious ham and chocolate with pink inside and little tricycles to ride, and read him stories through and through, and even took him to the zoo. But there it was, the dreadful fate befell him, which I now relate. You know, or at least you ought to know, for I have often told you so, that children never are allowed to leave their nurses in a crowd. This was Jim's especial foible. He ran away when he was able. And on this inauspicious day, he slipped his hand and ran away. He hadn't gone a yard when bang! With open jaws a lion sprang and hungrily began to eat the boy, beginning at his feet. And just imagine how it feels when first your toes and then your heels, and then by gradual degrees your shins and ankles, calves and knees are slowly eaten bit by bit. No wonder Jim detested it. No wonder that he shouted, "Hi!" The honest keeper heard his cry. Though very fat, he almost ran to help the little gentleman. "Ponto!" he ordered as he came, for Ponto was the lion's name. "Ponto!" he cried with angry frown. "Let go, sir! Down! Sir, put it down!" The lion made a sudden stop. He let the dainty morsel drop and slunk reluctant to his cage, snarling with disappointed rage. But when he bent him over Jim, the honest keeper's eyes were dim. The lion having reached his head, the miserable boy was dead. When nurse informed his parents, they were more concerned than I can say. His mother, as she dried her eyes, said, "Well, it gives me no surprise. He would not do as he was told." His father, who was self-controlled, bade all the children round attend to James's miserable end, and always keep a hold of nurse for fear of finding something worse. Our next poet on the list is a British-born dub poet, and his name is Benjamin Zephaniah. What is dub poetry? Well, it's a form of performance poetry of West Indian origin, which consists of spoken word over reggae rhythms. And the poetry of Benjamin Zephaniah is strongly influenced by the music and poetry of Jamaica. In 1994, Zephaniah's first book of poetry for children was published, called Talking Turkeys. An unconventional, straight-talking collection of poems about themes as wide as heroes, revolutions, racism, love, and animal rights. So next up on my list is the poem Talking Turkeys itself, a fun poem about turkeys at Christmas time. But it's a deeper message. It's a serious one, but Benjamin himself being a vegan vegetarian, so in this poem, in a fun way, he's making a serious point. Benjamin Zephaniah, not running away like a chicken in being straight talking and talking turkeys. Here's another little poetry joke. Are you ready? Which ogre writes and recites poetry? Shakespeare! Not so bad that one, is it? Getting better, getting better. Next up is dancer! Playwright, educator, author, quilt collector, and poet Zaro Weil. And a poem from her award-winning 2020 book of poems, Cherry Moon. This book is full of joy and delight, and poses big questions about life, and encourages you, me, us, to explore the power, enchantment and sheer wonder of the natural world all around us. The poem I have chosen and that goes on to my top of the poems is called Hide and Seek. The poem is simple, it's beautiful, and it feels to me to be about how we all sometimes need to just get away from it all, or just go for a walk and just be. In the poem's case, by walking in the woods, to just stop and look around and to find that quiet, restful place that is hiding inside all of us. And as Zaro says in one of her other poems, to go gently and let your eye be caught by little things. Zaro Weil, little poems, big ideas. Next, in Mr Dilly's top of the poems is the American English poet, playwright and critic and editor Thomas Stearns Eliot. Earthy! But he's known better as T.S. Eliot, and his most famous poem is called The Wasteland, in which he speaks about the devastating effects of World War I. But it is from the only book T.S. Eliot ever wrote for children that the next poem to make my list comes from. First published in 1939, Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats contains the poem Macavity, the Mystery Cat. Macavity the Mystery Cat is a long and playful poem about a villainous master criminal that steals milk, cheats at cards, spies and commits all types of crimes, but always escapes from being caught by the police, possibly because Macavity possesses the mystical power of what? Waking you up in the morning when you're fast asleep, clawing up your carpet, expertly licking his own bottom. Well, perhaps all of those things. But Macavity can float in the air. He can levitate! Macavity, there's no one like Macavity! And I'm absolutely positive about that. Yes, the puns are bad, but poetry is verse. Next up, and as you will see, we are sticking with cats for this one. The poet is Grace Nichols. She moved to Britain in the 1970s and has since published many books of poetry for both adults and for children. Much of her poetry is characterized by Caribbean rhythms and culture. In her poetry, she also speaks about different aspects of life, being a woman and being an immigrant living in the UK. But it is Grace Nichols' children's poem, Cat Rap, that makes it to my top of the poems list. It makes you smile, it makes you move, and if you have a cat, love cats, don't love cats, or somewhere in between, this poem is a lot of fun. So, as Grace Nichols says, snap it up, cause Grace Nichols' cat rap proves she's the meanest cat rapper you ever see. Number one of the Street Sound Galaxy. As you can see, rapping, not one of my strong points. Theodore Seuss Geisel was an American children's author, cartoonist, illustrator, animator, and poet, best known for publishing more than 60 books and selling over 600 million copies under the pen name Dr. Seuss. It is Dr. Seuss's last book and poem that makes my top of the poems list, and the last book to be published in his lifetime. It's 1990s, Oh, the Places You'll Go. The poem is about the journey of life, the ups, the downs, the twists, the turns, the starts, the stops, and the importance of seizing new opportunities, keeping an open mind, trying new things, and how to move through the experience of living with joy, thankfulness, ambition, and kindness. Sometimes things will be wonderful and joyful, sometimes they will be challenging and sad. But, as Dr. Seuss says, will you succeed? Yes, you will indeed! 98.75% guaranteed! And oh, the places you'll go! Finally, on Mr. Dilly's top of the poems is English poet, writer and performer Mr. A.F. Harrold. Mr. Harrold says that he is the owner of many books, a handful of hats, a few good ideas and one beard, which he says he spends a lot of time stroking. as it helps him churn out ideas. The poem by Mr. A.F. Harrold that makes it to my list is from his 2020 book of poems, The Book of Not Entirely Useful Advice. A collection, by his own admission, of spectacularly silly poems and a riotous celebration of words that fire your imagination, perhaps make you see things in a whole new way. The poem I have chosen is called The Perils of Breakfast, and Mr. Harrold has kindly given me, Mr. Dilly, his permission to share with you this poem today. So, here goes. Watch out for bears in your cornflakes. Bears are dangerous. Bears have big claws. Bears are always hungry, and at breakfast time, doubly so. If you lift a spoonful of cornflakes to your mouth, and it's got a bear hiding in it, well, you'll be in trouble then, won't you? Eaten up, just like that. Gobble, gobble, crunch. Fortunately, bears are larger than cornflakes, and so you can usually spot a little bit of fur poking around the side. If you do spot a little bit of fur poking round the side of the cornflake in the spoon you've lifted up to your mouth to have for your breakfast, then just put your spoon down. Step away and choose something else instead. But watch out for crocodiles in your porridge, and watch out for tigers under your toast. And that's it, the end of Mr. Dilly's Top of the Poems. There are hundreds, if not thousands of poems to choose from, so go find out more. Play with language, play with words, have some fun, be absurd, be ridiculous, be serious, be funny, be sad. Just play, play, play tomorrow or today with the wonderful world of poetry!